Hi there. Today we're going to review another book by Max Hastings, who is, together with Anthony Beevor, uh, probably the most popular uh, historians of World War II in the British bookshops. And the book we're going to talk about is The Secret War, Spies, Codes and Guerrillas. And it's like several of his books, it's a very, very large and detailed research into the subject, and it's a massive subject because he covers all the major players in World War II and their intelligence efforts. The UK, the US, Soviet Union, Japan, Germany, and so on. Right from the beginning, the SIS, or sometimes known as MI6, gets quite short shrift. Um, their efforts really before the war or between the wars um, really wasn't all that productive, and he particularly mentioned some of the criticism for C, the chief of the SIS, Sir Stuart Minges. And it says the Duke of Buccleuch, who had been Minges' fag at Eton, not the American connotation of that, by the way, told a friend that C's contemporaries were mystified how so unbelievably stupid a man could have ended up in such a position. And Hugh Trevor Roper, who worked in SIS, sneered at Minges as a thoroughly feudal lord living comfortably on income produced from the labour of peasants. In other words, he was gaining the fruits of others' labours. Of course, the really critical incident was what's become known as the Venlo incident, where two SIS officers, one mainstream and one from the Z network, were lured into a trap on the Dutch border at Venlo, which had been engineered by Walter Schellenberg of the SSSD, who captured these guys, and they were interrogated. They were prisoners for the entire war, and they gave up everything they knew about British intelligence. So the Germans had a pretty good orbat of British intelligence right before the war started. Intelligence is only useful if the customers trust the material being provided. It can be solid gold, but if the people you're giving it to don't trust your efforts, then it's all really a waste. And I was very interested to find out in the book that Stalin really had a lot of mistrust. For example, he never really trusted the Cambridge spies. He thought that it was a high-level plot by the British aristocracy to pull one over on the Soviet Union. He could never be convinced that they were traitors, and they were ideological traitors. So a lot of their efforts were ignored. And similarly, he had a spy in the German High Command who had gained intelligence of one of Hitler's plans, passed it on, and the Soviets were all banking on this, and then Hitler changed his mind at the last minute. And so they thought this was a German deception, and it wasn't. It was just Hitler with his mercurial approach to running the war. So that particular spy's efforts were never fully trusted. On the counterintelligence side, the Germans were very good. As you can see from Venlo, the German police had always been pretty efficient, and the counterintelligence / security setup that they had, as in most dictatorships, with the level of paranoia they have, they see traitors and enemies everywhere. They always have very robust secret security services, and the Germans did have a lot of very intelligent people with doctorates and so on, working for either the Abwehr, the police, or the SD. So it was very, very hard to penetrate German intelligence, the German target. On the other hand, in the UK, we're pretty good at it too, and we completely defeated the German Abwehr attempts to infiltrate agents into the UK, and the ones that were turned, the famous double cross activities, became very, very valuable sources of disinformation back into Germany. SOE gets fair treatment by Max Hastings. He admits its faults, but puts it into perspective, particularly in the teeth of the machinations of Menzies, who was always tried to get us strangled at birth, and was very, very resentful of its existence throughout the war. And his deputy, Dancy, who was a terribly devious character, even for an intelligence officer, really did try their best to stop SOE performing at all. Some of the things they did helped SIS a lot. For example, the operations they did in the run-up to D-Day, where they cut telephone wire and telegraph lines in France, which made the Germans rely on radio, which were intercepted. Now this operation, GCHQ obviously, was the jewel in the crown for SIS, and it's the reason that they came out of the war with any kind of credibility at all. And Hastings does give full credit to the Polish cryptographers who did a lot of the initial work on defeating Enigma. That material was handed over personally to Menzies in Paris, and he brought it back to London. And for the rest of the war, that was MI6's real triumph, was having Bletchley. The United States entered the war really as intelligence virgins in a way. Malcolm Muggeridge famously alluded to them entering the brothel of British intelligence and had a rude awakening. And they had to learn quickly, and they set up OSS, which in some ways was a better model than the British system, because it integrated both arms. It integrated the material covered by SOE and SIS in one unit in OSS. In other words, the sabotage side as well as the intelligence gathering side. And of course they did quickly learn, and became post-war were the dominant force in the intelligence community. I've mentioned the Cambridge spies, and after the war there was a real resentment by the Americans to the leaks and the activities from the these spies in the UK. However, the book reveals, and this again was new to me, that the Soviets had many they had about 30 separate networks running into the United States, far outweighing the efforts of the Cambridge spies. So really, and it stands to reason, you know, the Soviets saw the United States the capitalist enemy, and would run agents against them. So Max Hastings does point out some instances where intelligence was decisive, and one was the Soviets had a spy in OKV, the German High Command, who gave them the information about the battle for Kursk, the biggest tank battle in history, and the Soviets were aware of the German plans and were able to win that battle, which then led directly to the whole collapse of the Eastern Front and the eventual Soviet march into Berlin. Really, in my opinion, there wasn't that much to choose between the Soviets and the Nazis, both evil dictatorships. Nazis, Hitler, marginally worse, probably because of the Holocaust, but the Soviets did slaughter, murder millions of people, and inflicted misery on Eastern Europe for decades. Other decisive use of intelligence, obviously GCHQ was able to give our generals operational intelligence, which they could rely on. They were aware that it was a reliable source and could make their plans accordingly. Particularly things like the deception operation around D-Day. The book is full of really interesting stuff. I would talk about Mrs. Ferguson's tea set. One little incident which had such a catastrophic effect on the British side early in the war. The Germans managed to gain a lot of intelligence past it to Japan. That chapter alone is so fascinating, and it's these small things that can give intelligence breakthroughs. Terrific book by one of our top popular historians, and on a subject that I find fascinating. Really enjoyable.